The early morning sunlight filtered through the thin curtains, casting a warm glow across our bedroom. I rolled over, my arm instinctively reaching for Stella's familiar curves, but her side of the bed was empty and cool to the touch. With a sigh, I sat up, running a hand through my tousled hair. Our once rock-solid marriage had become a fragile thing lately, strained by the long hours I spent on the road as a delivery driver. Stella's smiles had grown increasingly rare, replaced by a distant, melancholic gaze that twisted my gut into knots every time I caught a glimpse of it. Steeling myself, I padded into the living room, where Stella sat on the couch, her fingers absently tracing the rim of her coffee mug. "Morning," I offered, sliding onto the couch beside her. She gave me a fleeting smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Morning. You've got that big testimony in next few weeks, right?" I nodded solemnly. My dashcam footage and those incriminating social media videos were the key evidence against TechNexus Incorporated, the corporate behemoth accused of enabling drug trafficking through their fleet of delivery trucks. "Yeah, I should probably head out soon. I'll be working the Northwest sector today, in case you need to reach me." That familiar flicker of sadness crossed Stella's features as she nodded. "Okay, be safe out there." Leaning in, I pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead before reluctantly rising to my feet. "I love you, Stell." Her reply was barely audible. "I love you too." The delivery van rumbled beneath me as I navigated the familiar streets, my mind replaying that haunting look of resignation on Stella's face. A sudden vibration in my pocket pulled me from my thoughts, an incoming call from an unknown number. Frowning, I connected the call through the van's hands-free system. "Hello? Good morning, Mr. Walker." The smooth, cultured voice on the other end sent an inexplicable chill down my spine. "This is Dexter Moore, lead counsel for TechNexus Incorporated." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "How did you get this number?" A soft chuckle filtered through the speakers. "I have my ways, Mr. Walker. I'm aware of the incriminating evidence you possess against my client, evidence that could prove quite damaging in court. Then I'm sure you're aware of how serious this situation is," I countered, my jaw clenched. TechNexus enabled drug trafficking on a massive scale. Lives were ruined, families torn apart. They need to be held accountable. A noble sentiment, Dexter purred, but one that fails to consider the collateral damage such accountability might entail. An uneasy knot formed in the pit of my stomach. "What are you getting at?" "Simply that we all have vulnerabilities, Mr. Walker. Weak spots that, if exploited properly, could unravel even the most steadfast convictions." The call disconnected with an ominous click, leaving me alone with my troubled thoughts. A few hours later, I pulled into the Southwest Residential District for my next batch of deliveries. The neighborhood was a maze of winding streets and well-kept lawns, the epitome of suburban tranquility, until something caught my eye: Stella's car, parked in front of an unfamiliar house. My heart stuttered in my chest as confusion and dread swirled together in a sickening vortex. What was she doing here? Pulling to the curb, I activated the hidden camera in my shirt pocket, just in case, and strode up the immaculate pathway to the front door, my footsteps heavy with trepidation. Peering through the front window, I felt the entire world grind to a halt. There was Stella, naked and writhing beneath a shirtless man on the living room couch, their bodies intertwined in a shocking, intimate embrace. A choked sound escaped my lips as I stumbled backwards, while scorching the back of my throat, my vision blurred with unshed tears, a roaring anguish threatening to claw its way out of my chest. In a haze of betrayal and fury, I snatched up a jagged rock from the garden bed and hurled it through the window with a resounding crash. Shards of glass exploded inward as Stella and her lover jerked apart, identical expressions of shock and fear etched across their features. I barely registered the stinging cuts on my hands as I lurched toward the now open door, my body trembling with a volatile cocktail of rage and heartbreak. "You!" My voice cracked like splintered glass as I stared at the man who had so callously violated my sacred vows. "How could you?" He regarded me with an infuriatingly calm look, not even bothering to cover his naked form as he rose to his feet. Well, if it isn't the star witness himself. I must say, Your timing is impeccable, Mr. Walker. That smooth, cultured voice, the same one that had sent a chill down my spine earlier, slammed into me like a physical blow. Dexter Moore, the lawyer from TechNexus, the smarmy bastard who had just been intimate with my wife on that very couch. You son of a bitch, I snarled, vision fracturing into a kaleidoscope of red-hot fury. Before I could even process what was happening, my body was in motion, fists swinging with wild, unchecked aggression. Distantly, I registered Stella's desperate cries, pleading for me to stop, but the roar of blood pounding in my ears drowned out all reason. Then, just as abruptly as it had started, bodies slammed into me from behind. Law enforcement officers, restraining my violent outburst with practiced efficiency, as they wrenched my arms behind my back and slapped on the cold, unforgiving metal of handcuffs. A cruel chuckle cut through the chaos. Dexter, his face already mottled with blossoming bruises, sneered at me through the haze of shattered glass and turmoil. Just as I planned, Mr. Walker. You've made quite the compelling case against yourself. Those chilling words burrowed deep, taking root in the shredded remnants of my heart as I was dragged away. This was only the beginning. The harsh fluorescent lights of the holding cell cast an unflattering pall over my already haggard features. Hours had passed since the officers had dragged me away in handcuffs, but the memory of Dexter's smug, taunting sneer was seared into my mind like a branding iron. You've really stepped in it this time, Walker. I jolted upright at the familiar voice, my eyes landing on the imposing figure standing outside the cell. Marcus Briggs, my oldest friend and a passionate defense attorney, regarded me with a grim expression. Tell me what happened, Trent. All of it. The words tumbled out in a torrent, each one carving fresh wounds into my fractured psyche. Stella's infidelity, Dexter's twisted manipulation, my uncontrolled rage boiling over into violence. When I finally fell silent, Marcus's jaw was set in a hard line. That underhanded snake played you like a fiddle. But we can use this to our advantage. I blinked owlishly. What do you mean? Marcus leaned closer, his voice lowering conspiratorially. I've been after TechNexus for years, ever since their negligence led to the drugs that killed my sister. This is our chance to bring them down, once and for all. His gaze bored into me with steely determination. You said you had video footage from that hidden camera? Realization dawned, a flicker of hope sparking amidst the ashes of my despair. Yeah, it captured everything. Dexter's setup, the whole confrontation. The barest hint of a smile tugged at Marcus's lips. Then we've got them dead to rights. Hand that evidence over to me, and I'll handle the rest. Several tense hours crawled by before the guards finally released me, Marcus's deft legal maneuvering securing my bail. As we strode out into the fading evening light, he clapped a reassuring hand on my shoulder. We're going to grind that slimeball Dexter into the dust, Trent. TechNexus won't know what hit them. In the days that followed, Marcus and I pored over every shred of evidence, meticulously strategizing our approach for the impending trial. My friend's dogged determination was both inspiring and terrifying. The man was utterly relentless in his pursuit of justice. Moore's going to try painting you as a hot-headed, unhinged lunatic, Marcus mused one evening, scrutinizing the footage from my hidden camera. But this... He tapped the screen, where Dexter's smug visage sneered back at us. This is the smoking gun. His entire scheme, laid bare. I scrubbed a weary hand over my face, the weight of recent events bearing down heavily. You really think we can take down a giant like TechNexus? Marcus's gaze was resolute. They enabled the drug trafficking that destroyed countless lives, Trent, including my own sister's. This is personal for me. His expression softened infinitesimally. And after what that snake Moore pulled with Stella, well, let's just say he's got a reckoning coming. A reluctant smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. Having Marcus in my corner was like having a pit bull on a leash, a tenacious, unwavering force to be reckoned with. As the trial date loomed ever closer, the stakes continued to escalate. Increasingly brazen threats started arriving. Anonymous calls warning that my family would suffer if I persisted with my damning testimony. But those empty threats only fanned the flames of my determination. Because in my darkest hour, I'd uncovered a devastating truth. The drugs trafficked by TechNexus's negligence were the same insidious poison that had nearly claimed my nephew Danny's life, sending him into a downward spiral of addiction. No, there would be no backing down. Not after witnessing the agonizing toll it had taken on my brother's family. TechNexus and their despicable enablers would face justice, no matter how high the cost. I was in this fight until the bitter end. They're getting desperate, Trent. Marcus's grim words sliced through the tense silence of his office like a razor's edge. In his hand, he gripped yet another menacing message, this one containing a grainy photograph of my parents' home and a crude threat inked in jagged crimson lettering. My jaw clenched as I met his steely gaze. Let them try whatever underhanded tactics they want. We've got the truth on our side. A faint smile tugged at the corner of Marcus's mouth. That's what I like to hear. Because these corporate bastards are going down hard, my friend. He leaned back in his chair, idly shuffling through the meticulously organized case files. We've got them dead to rights on multiple counts. Racketeering, criminal negligence, you name it. With your testimony and that video evidence, they don't stand a chance in hell. Resolve settled over me like a suit of armor as I gave a grim nod. Good. They're going to learn that some lines shouldn't be crossed. For a heartbeat, a pensive frown creased Marcus's brow. I have to ask, Trent, are you sure you want to go through with this? Even after what happened with Stella? An image of her naked, writhing form flashed through my mind's eye, the ghost of betrayal leaving a bitter taste on my tongue. But I crushed it beneath the weight of my conviction. She made her choice, I said flatly, and I've made mine, to do what's right, no matter the cost. TechNexus needs to be held accountable. Marcus regarded me with solemn respect. Then we'd best get ready to bring the thunder, my friend. As I stepped out into the fading light of dusk, squaring my shoulders beneath the weight of the imminent battle, a sense of grim purpose burned within me. This was about more than just my own pain and heartbreak. This was about justice, for Danny, for Marcus's sister, for every life shattered by the insidious spread of drugs. And I would be damned if I let a pack of corporate vultures escape their reckoning. The oppressive silence of the courthouse seemed to press in from all sides as I took my place on the witness stand. Across the room, Dexter Moore's cold, shark-like gaze bored into me. His lips curved into a condescending sneer. "Mr. Walker," he began, voice dripping with disdain, "isn't it true that you were arrested for assault and trespassing shortly before this trial? An act of violence fueled by unbridled jealousy and rage?" My jaw clenched, but Marcus cut him off with a sharp gesture. "Objection, Your Honor. The defendant is deliberately mischaracterizing the events in question." The judge leveled a stern look at Dexter. Sustained. "Watch your language, Mr. Moore." Undeterred, the smarmy lawyer pressed on. "Very well. Let's address the proverbial elephant in the room, shall we? The footage from Mr. Walker's indiscretion." With a dramatic flourish, he queued up the video on the courtroom's monitors, the sickening sight of Stella's infidelity playing out in high definition. White-hot humiliation seared my skin as hushed murmurs rippled through the gallery. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of Stella's downcast expression, her shoulders hunched in shame. Dexter leaned forward, a predatory glint in his eye. An understandably heated reaction from a wronged husband, wouldn't you agree? One that calls into question Mr. Walker's credibility and judgment as a witness. Fury blazed to life in my chest, but Marcus cut him off with a sharp bark of laughter. "Is that the best you've got, Moore? Trying to discredit a witness over a crime of passion?" He shook his head in mock disappointment. And here I thought the great Dexter Moore had more tricks up his sleeve. Retrieving a tablet from his briefcase, Marcus tapped the screen, and another video began to play. This one captured by a neighbor's security camera. It showed the entire sordid affair from start to finish. Dexter seducing Stella, luring me to the house, provoking the violent confrontation. His scheme laid bare for all to see. "You see, ladies and gentlemen," Marcus intoned, his voice ringing with conviction, "Mr. Moore orchestrated this entire debacle in a desperate bid to undermine my client's credibility. An unethical, reprehensible ploy to protect his corrupt corporate masters." He fixed Dexter with a scathing glare. "But in doing so, He's only compounded Technexus's crimes with his own misconduct. As the devastating truth sank in, a hush fell over the courtroom. Dexter's mask of smug arrogance had finally cracked, revealing the panic simmering beneath. This was the turning point, the moment where the scales of justice began to tip in our favor. And in light of the overwhelming evidence, I have no choice but to find Technexus Incorporated guilty on all counts of criminal negligence and racketeering. The judge's solemn declaration seemed to reverberate through the hushed courtroom like a thunderclap. A collective intake of breath, then a crescendo of hushed whispers and murmurs. Beside me, Marcus wore a grim smile of vindication, a warrior who had finally achieved his hard-fought victory. His sister's memory could finally rest, knowing that justice had been served. As for me, the weight of 1,000 burdens seemed to lift from my shoulders in that moment. The turmoil, the heartbreak, the fear. It had all been worth it in the end. Technexus's reign of corporate greed and negligence had been brought to its knees. In the days that followed, I finally mustered the strength to confront Stella one last time. She looked utterly diminished, a shadow of the vibrant woman I'd once loved. Her eyes haunted, her shoulders bearing the weight of her shame. "I'm so sorry, Trent," she whispered, voice broken. "Dexter. He made me feel special again, valued. But it was all just lies and manipulation." I regarded her in silence, processing the hollow ache that still lingered in my chest. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Stella. What you did." I trailed off, shaking my head slowly. Her gaze dropped to the floor, shoulders shuddering with silent sobs. "I understand. Just know that I never stopped loving you, even when I lost my way." With a weary sigh, I reached into my pocket and withdrew the divorce papers, sliding them across the table towards her. "It's over, Stella. We're through." A fresh wave of tears spilled down her cheeks as she pinned a shaking signature, sealing the death of our once vibrant marriage. In that moment, I felt something within me wither and die. The last fragile threads binding us together, severed. We parted ways in silence, two broken souls adrift in separate currents of life. In the aftermath of Technexus's downfall, the dominoes continued to topple, a reckoning that reverberated through the corporate world and legal community alike. Riding the wave of his high-profile victory, Marcus spearheaded a relentless campaign to see Dexter Moore disbarred and terminated from his prestigious law firm. Clip after clip of the slippery lawyer's unethical conduct, meticulously compiled from the trial footage, left no shred of doubt as to his gross misconduct. "This is what happens when lawyers prioritize profits over justice," Marcus had declared in a fiery press conference, his words carried across every major news network. Ethics and morality cannot be sacrificed on the altar of corporate greed. Within a matter of weeks, Dexter's once bright future had been reduced to ashes. Disgraced, disbarred, and cast into obscurity. A cautionary tale of what awaited those who strayed from the path of ethical conduct. As for Stella, the scandal left her life in ruins. Stories of her infidelity and role in Dexter's scheme blazed across the headlines like wildfire, costing her not only her job but the respect of friends and family alike. More than once, I caught glimpses of her haunted, hollow-eyed visage while out on my delivery routes, a devastated, ostracized specter bearing the weight of her choices. I weathered the storm of turmoil by clinging to the solace that justice had ultimately prevailed. My testimony, my unwavering determination to expose the truth, had helped bring down a corporate monolith and cripple the flow of drugs that had wreaked such havoc. Families torn apart by addiction, lives cut tragically short. The demons I'd witnessed firsthand, personified in my nephew Danny's agonizing struggle. At long last, they could find some semblance of peace and closure, secure in the knowledge that those responsible had faced their reckoning. And though my own heart still bore the scars of Stella's betrayal, I took solace in the fact that I had given voice to the voiceless, a crucial role in safeguarding the sanctity of truth and bringing light into the darkness. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.